morning, everyone. Buenos días. ¿Cómo están? Oh, pero que es que no las oigo. How are you doing this morning? You know, do you know what today is? International Women's Day. I love the theme that I said has, empower her. I said, for having the vision of bringing all of you, all of us together to empower her. When I say empower her, it starts with us. Empower yourself. I celebrate you, I celebrate us here today. Hopefully, I would say that all of you came here with a purpose, with a mission, and a why. Now, it is the last day of the conference, and hopefully, you have reached that purpose of meeting someone, supporting someone, connecting with someone. And if you haven't, then I challenge you already that before you leave, you connect with someone that either you can lift up, push up, or support in any other way. I know I didn't have it majority of the time throughout my own career journey. I wish I had. And in fact, I would say that if I had a lot of golden nuggets, a lot of the knowledge that I have now, my career journey would have been a little bit different. But where I found myself years ago was in the emergency room. And I walked in like this. And I could barely hold on to the wall. I didn't know why. I didn't know what was going on. If you ever go to the ER room, you know that you can spend at least 3 to a long time, right? 3 hours, 5 hours, it goes on and on. What I was experiencing, I mean, when I tell you I was throwing up my enchiladas, I was throwing up Bionecks because there was nothing left, and still I was throwing up, I was heaving, and I was The doctors did blood tests. They ran me through a CT scan. They did an MRI. A few hours later, they gave me some medication. I fell asleep, which was great. I probably need that sometimes, but you know, that's a different story. The doctor came back, and he sat down next to me, which, if you've ever been to an ER room, you know the doctors are pretty quick, like this is what you do, this is what we're gonna do next, see you later, right? For some reason, this doctor, this ER doctor, had empathy and compassion towards me. And I remember him sitting down with me, and he said, Marianne, you are perfectly fine. Your blood results are fine, your MRI, your CT scan, there is nothing that we should be concerned about. And in my head, I said, well, that's great, but I feel like shit, right? He asked me, which no one had ever done, my head was down, working hard, what is going on in your personal life, your work life? For the first time in my own career, someone that didn't know me took the time to ask me what was going on. The reality of it was that I was great at what I was doing. I was great. But I hated it. I don't know if any of you feel that way. So, you know, I love how Jackie talked about her pivotal point. A lot of women throughout this session have talked about their pivotal point. And if you walk away with anything throughout this session, these sessions, is the fact that if you have reached a pivotal point and you haven't done anything, shame on you. If you haven't reached that pivotal point and you do come to it, then you realize that you come to a crossroads where you have to make a decision where it can take you to a really great place or not so great place. And so at that time, I had to make a decision. I had been in the industry that I was in for over a decade, and the only thing I got out of it was one of my core needs, which was impact. Now I ask you, I can't really see you, which, the audience, the presenters are right. But if you're on your phone, put it down. If you're on your computer, close it, please. Because I'm about to ask you some very important questions, and I want you to engage with. Number one, raise your hand if at any point in your career or now you feel stuck. And don't worry who's beside you. Maybe your boss might be next to you. It's good for them to know. I think one of the greatest things that I think ASED has done is created a safe space. So I commend them for that. Number two, raise your hand if you have felt alone or you feel lonely in your career journey. Look around you. Keep your hands up. Look around you. Amigas, you're not alone. Now, I want you to think about the next question. We all have strengths and weaknesses. We do. Do you have the level of self-awareness to know what they are? Don't ask my kids, because they'll give you a list of all my weaknesses, and I'm like, listen, I can only do so much. But think about it. Do you have a current challenge in your career that you would like to address? Do you have a current challenge in your career that you would like to address? Please stand up if that is you. Don't be shy. It's a safe space. I hear movement. I see a few bodies standing up. For those of you standing or not standing, maybe there is a challenge that you're experiencing. Here's the thing. It all comes with a level of self-awareness. If we don't have that, we can't move forward. If you were to choose one thing to address, what would that be? I want you to think about it. Truly think about it. Be honest with yourself. Be that critic to yourself, although we always are, but be honest. If you're having a challenge, have you addressed it? Have you thought about it? What would that be? And we have 60 minutes, so we have all day too. Well, not all day. So many times it's very easy. No, and I encourage you to stay standing, please. I saw little bodies go down, but no, stay standing. You stood up, stand up. Embrace it. If you're wearing high heels, you know what? I'll take them off with you, I know it's hard to stand in heels. Be honest with yourself. What is that one thing? I want you to take your phone out at this moment if you did stand up, because the one thing that we need to change is that we need to have an accountability partner. I don't know who that is for you. Maybe it's your mom. Maybe it's your husband. Maybe it's your best friend for the past 20 years. Whoever it may be. Maybe it's one of your children. I love all my kids, but I don't know that I would text them. They'd be like, what are you doing? Think about that one person. I want you to take your phone out and text them right now. What is that one thing that you have a challenge with? I see some of you texting. I see some of you just looking at me. Don't have that look of deer in the headlights like, ¿qué está haciendo esta? Text that one person. We're going to come back to this. When you think about executive coaching, everything that you do in your career, it comes down to accountability. my screen is not moving. One more. I am Marian Pina Fracham. Y'all may have a seat. I am the CEO of Career Management Partners. We are the only Latina-owned firm across the United States that serves the full talent lifecycle in the human capital space. This is only a sample of who we serve, whether that's through executive recruiting, leadership development, outplacement services, or assessment for selection and development. One thing that I've been very fortunate is the fact that I am in those C-suite conversations. So when you think about how can we move the agenda forward, we can't move it forward without the C-suite. And I'm going to stop here real quick because it's very important. We have a project coming up. I won't mention the name of the company, but it was with the CEO. I will reiterate his words verbatim. We're doing a DEI audit. And he said to my team, you know, many people told me it was a waste of time and a waste of money. True conversation. And I said to him, if you know me, if you get to know me, you know I'm a big feeler. And we're taught not to cry, right? And you have to show up depending on the situation. I didn't cry, but I know my voice cracked when I told him, Mr. Jones, and you'll hear Mr. Jones a lot. I'm just sticking with Mr. Jones for this whole time, okay? I said, Mr. Jones, from my perspective, it's not only the right thing to do, it's the business imperative. I think a lot of people think that DEI is overrated, and that to a certain degree, it might be. But at the end of the day, the important part is that there are ROI outcomes when you do DEI right. Today is about executive coaching. Take a look at these images. What do these women have in common? Tell me. Coaches, absolutely, coaches. A gymnast couldn't make it to the Olympic without a coach. The soccer players, when you think about the World Soccer and the Soccer Federation for Women, they couldn't make it there without a coach. Singers couldn't make a career out of it if they didn't have a coach. And actually, the singing part comes very personally because one of our daughters, the oldest, we're a blended family. She's the oldest, and she always loved singing. Loves it so much. She wanted to be an opera singer. She's had a vocal coach for as long as I can remember. She got her master's, she would come home, and there's one rule in the house, and we tell her, Sydney, we know you love coaching, but there is an hour for it. You can't sing before 10 a.m., and you can't sing after 10 p.m. It is what it is. There are boundaries. But I share the story of our daughter because there was a lot of self-doubt. I don't know if I'll be chosen. I don't know if I'm good enough. There's this older woman that's just like phenomenal, and she's a mezzo-soprano like me. What are you waiting for? You've had vocal coaches all your life. So she hired another one. Proud of her. She's figured it out on her own. I don't know anything about opera. In fact, my husband hates opera, so he's like barely bearing it. And she's gifted. She has the skills, but she needed a little bit of oomph to get her there. Now, she's a member of the Montreal Opera in Canada. But listen, it wasn't easy. So many times we talk about following your passion. We didn't know her passion was going to be singing, and so for all we knew, she might be singing bar mitzvahs for the rest of her life. I don't know. And we're just like, can you get off the payroll, please? We all need a coach. And throughout these couple days that I've been here, I've been talking to some of you, meeting some new people from all over the United States, and I love it. I absolutely love it. If I haven't connected with you, I want to. And so through those connections, I met someone literally yesterday, and we were talking about executive coaching. And I asked her, have you had an executive coach? And she looked at me and she said, well, actually, yeah. I've had 3. And I was like, no. Tell me about that. I met Hadi Mendez yesterday, and I was blown away by her response. Not only does she know what she needs, she understands the value of coaching. Now, while today we're talking about executive coaching, there are so many different types of coaching. Like I talked about Sydney, she had a vocal coach. I have a business coach because I don't know what I don't know, and I'm not going to pretend to know. There's career coaching, there's executive coaching, and there are different reasons to hire a coach. But Hadi, she's kind of figured it out. And so instead of telling you what is a coach and the types of coaching, I wanted to invite her to the stage to tell you firsthand what that is. What did it look like for her, and why she hired them? Think about it. Show me a raise of hands if you've had 3 coaches in your lifetime. 3 coaches, raise your hand. I wish I could see, I see 1 hand, maybe 2. There's a few here and there. There's a reason to have a coach. There's a time to have a coach. And honestly, it's okay to have a coach. And I'll talk about that here more in depth in a little bit. But the beauty of it is that if you walk away with something today, is knowing that in your own career journey, you can't do it alone. Absolutely not. Whether it's being sponsored by your company or you're self-financing, let me tell you, it is freaking worth it. Don't buy the darn shoes. Don't buy the purse. Put that, $300, whatever it is, to a savings account for investment in yourself. Hadi, where's she at? Amiga, I just met her yesterday.
Hi, everybody.
But this is the power of the Latina Empower Her Forum. This is the power of coming here and connecting with one another intentionally. Because when I met Hadi, she made me realize that there's got to be more of her in this room. And so, Hadi, the floor is yours. Tell them about your 3 experiences with coaching.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marianne. Hi, everybody. I'm Hadi Mendez. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I was most recently the head of equality at Slack, and I am part of, unfortunately, a product of the tech layoffs. So let me tell you a little bit about coaching. I've used coaches exactly 3 times in my career so far, and I would say right now is the 4th time. The first time was because I wanted to leave a job, I wanted to leave a company, and I used a coach to help me make myself more attractive to other employers, and that coach helped me to essentially sell myself to another company, and I was hired by another company, and I got more money. So that was time number 1. Time number 2 was when I was at that company, I decided that I wanted to get promoted within that first year. I heard of other people being able to do it. I was told by my manager that it was a very difficult thing to do, but I was not told that it was impossible, and therefore I used a coach to make sure that I got promoted within the first 13 months of being at that company, and again, I got more money. So I got a higher title and more money. The third time I used a coach, all this was within like a 2 or 3 year period, was because I wanted to pivot into DEI. So I came from a customer success world. I wanted to be working internally on DEI initiatives and strategy. And so I hired a career coach to help me to sell myself in that way and to create an opportunity for myself. And I was very fortunate when the new head of employee success was hired at Slack about a year ago. The chief equality officer named me to be the person that he should speak to first about getting hired for that position, and I got that job. So I was 3 for 3, and I would say that I am a big, big advocate for coaching. If you put in the work, you are gonna, I think you're almost guaranteed that you're gonna get the outcome you're looking for if you put in the work and you're matched with someone who's really good at helping you get what you want. I'll just make one more comment that I also shared with Marianne yesterday, is that 100% of the time that I have gotten a coach, that I paid for a coach, I got a woman of color. To me, that was very important. It's up to you, that's a personal decision, but I felt like that was what I needed for how I wanted to conduct the conversations, and that worked out for me. I had 3 Black women who helped me to be more successful, and I am very grateful to them for doing that for me. So thanks, Marianne.
Thank you. You can take that back. Give me a minute. Para que mi mamá no diga que, ay, Mariana. I heard that growing up. I knew I was in trouble when I heard Mariana. Anyway, so types of coaching, right? Javi gave her experience, 3 very different scenarios. But when it comes to your career and your potential, your performance, this is where the types of coaching come into play. We have 2. It's performance coaching, and then there's potential. I'm gonna introduce you to a friend. Well, this is not really her, but it is, oh, wait a minute. Where is Sochi? Oh, I think they're navigating the scripts for me. Hold on. There's Sochi. When we think about hiring a coach, the reasons we have a coach, or maybe it's sponsored by your company, there's 2 reasons. It's for performance, or it's for potential. Now, you're gonna have to bear with me, okay? Performance is not always a negative thing. When you think about having an executive coach or any type of coach, it is about performance. There's 2 things. Number 1, do you have derailing behaviors that is affecting your company, and at the end of the day, there's an ROI issue? You're gonna get a coach. If they see potential in you, you're gonna get a coach. Number 2, it's also behaviorally based, but it's also to acquire behavior skills that will make you a better leader. So when I heard about Sochi, this isn't her real picture, by the way, but she does exist. Sochi had been promoted into director level, and so all of a sudden, she was in the procurement space for a tech company. All of a sudden, she found herself now leading her peers, who were used to be her peers. And she had a challenge with it. She had a challenge of delegating. She had a challenge of having those crucial conversations, right? I don't know if you've ever been there, but that's what Sochi was experiencing. So her company hired a coach to guide her through those performance behavioral skills to gain. Here's the coolest part about Sochi. Sochi was phenomenal at what she was doing. Because when you get a call 2 years later and you get asked, can we support Sochi through performance coaching, which means that she is seen as a high potential within her organization. How can we educate, teach Sochi to go from a tactical space into a strategy space? When you think about the Latino career chasm that we're facing, it is real. Some companies are truly investing in their human capital, in their people, in their employees. And this particular company saw something in Sochi that they were putting her in the pipeline to be a leader. So Sochi at that point not only did get performance coaching to support her team and have the ROI. You know, Caroline talked about that at the end of the day. There's ROI in coaching. And if you can take that back to your organization, if you can realize the impact that it has in organizations, you will shine. Sochi was promoted. Sochi understood that there was value in the coaching that she received. But then it becomes of the question of, what is a coach? What do I look for? How do I choose them? How does my company choose them? And so here are the 6 success essentials of effective coaching. It was actually featured on Forbes. I guess that's when you feel like you actually know something about a something, right? There's outcome-focused, relationship-enabled, assessment-driven, timed, short feedback loops, and measurable. You know, as an organization, that is our methodology. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. But our methodology when it comes to executive coaching is that we are, first and foremost, we are assessment-driven, outcome-focused, and relationship-enabled. You can't have a good executive coaching assignment with all those. But these are the 6 success of essentials. Number 1, outcome-focused. Each assignment is focused on 2 to 3 areas that are critical for your success and for the success of your organization. Do you know what you need to be focused on? What is that one thing? 2 things, maybe 3 things. Don't do more than 3, because it becomes like a diet, right? So it's like, you start a diet in January, and then 3 weeks later, it's like, it's out the door. Number 2, relationship enabled. When I was talking to some of you, actually quite a few of you said, I actually have had some type of coach, but it wasn't a great match. He didn't get me, or she didn't get me. So when you think about being relationship enabled, your match is important. Be a useful and credible resource for you. And by credible, I mean there's 3 things. They need to have a methodology in place. They need to be certified. The most common certification, if you don't know, it's ICF certification. It's across the United States. When you think about hiring a coach, if you are a director, VP, whatever industry you're in, you would want to make sure that that individual comes with that level of experience to guide you through the challenges that you're experiencing. And lastly, it's creating a safe space. A safe space where you can take your shoes off, a safe space where you can be fully transparent of the challenges that you're experiencing. The next one is assessment-driven, and I can go on in regards to assessment because I'm just truly fascinated by it. At the front end of any executive coaching program, there's got to be an assessment. If you're familiar with any assessments, you know that there's the Hogan, there's the Leadership Temperament Index, right? So many others. This part is so important because we take a look at your wiring. Who are you as an individual? How are your behaviors showing up at your work? And you know what the most fascinating part about this is the fact that your behaviors not only show up at work, they actually show up in your other friendships, relationships that you have. And it's funny, I'll share with you that years ago I was doing a team training for Raising Cane's, and we were doing a fun MBTI team session. If you're not familiar with the MBTI, actually Caroline touched on it about being an introvert or an extrovert. And I asked the team, have any of you experienced an MBTI before? And a young gentleman, I think he's in his early 30s, poor guy, he said, oh, I have, Marianne. I'm like, great. What did you learn about yourself? He said, well, I don't know. I never got the results. I'm like, well, why didn't you get the results? Well, I met this girl on Tinder, and she sent me a link, and then I never heard from her. And I'm like, well, I don't know about you, but as a female, I'm like, kudos to her as a young lady trying to find her person that she knew what personality she was looking for. And he wasn't it. So when you think about assessment, it doesn't just impact your career, it impacts everything else that you do. And we know the power of assessment, and for this reason, it sucks to be our kids, just full transparency, because everyone they bring home are like, we're gonna give them an assessment. They're like, Mom, Dad. But here's the value of it. Whether it's work life or personal life, one of the things that I love to see is that, are they emotionally stable? And if they're not, let's talk about it. Because if people aren't emotionally stable, and we can see that through an assessment, it needs to be addressed. The next part is being timed. It's very important to understand the timeline of an executive coaching assignment or any coaching assignment, right? Normally, it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, but it is timed and it is outcome focused. Listen, if you tell me, yeah, I've had the same executive coach for 2 years and I love it, I'm like, you know what, there is something wrong, let's talk about it. Because if you have the same coach for that amount of time, you're not being focused anymore. At least you're not being outcome focused anymore. An executive coach can end up being your best friend, but they're not supposed to be your executive coach at the end of the day. And I see that a lot. The next part when it comes to executive coaching, when it is being sponsored by your organization, is that it is definitely reviewed on a monthly basis, whether it's with your leader, your HR. And the reason for that is because we want to make sure that there is some type of calibration being done. If something isn't working out, we need to readjust. If the outcome isn't what it was supposed to be, or if you met the outcome, let's readjust. Short feedback loops to get that feedback. The next part is measurable. When it comes to executive coaching, there is ROI. When a leader learns to lead their team and they're more productive, there is ROI in that. Amigas, those are the 6 essentials of effective coaching. But I want to bring it down to a personal level. A personal level where we gain self-insights about ourselves, about our wiring, about our acculturation, about our own cultural scripts that so many times we're not even aware of. I know I wasn't. It's been a learning process, and I think so many times it is. Had I known what I know now 15, 18 years ago, maybe my career journey would have been a little bit different, but I'm not complaining. There are certain cultural scripts that affect and influence our day-to-day behaviors. If you've never seen these, it's okay. I didn't know about them either. I might get emotional because I have a couple stories to share with you. And like I said earlier, I'm a big feeler. So every time I hear about the stories of what our Latinas are going through and what they're facing, it's just like, man, it's real. The chasm is real. The 7 cultural scripts, you may not be aware of them, but they're respeto, they're machismo, marianismo, simpatía, familismo, collectivism, personalismo, and present time orientation. I know I grew up, my mom saying, ay, Mariana, pues si Dios quiere. And I thought, well, what does God have to do with it? Can I just do it? Mariana, no digas eso, Mariana. Respeto. Respect has been such a big part of my value and identity. Everything under the moon growing up was respect. Mariana, no digas eso. Mariana, no hagas preguntas. Mariana, when the elders walked in, you walked out. When I got my first promotion, I was only like 27 years old, and I was at the table. I was one of three Hispanic people at the table. None of us said a word. One of my dear friends, Colombiano, Puerto Riqueño, and then there was me. All older than me, by the way. 20 plus years older. Nothing wrong with that, but it was this like, oh, well, if Mr. Quijano, actually Dr. Quijano needs to speak up because he's the one with the doctorate, you know? But he wasn't speaking up. I was at the table. They were about to make a really bad decision for stakeholders. And I was sitting there at my table, and I remember this vividly. Fire in my belly. I had never spoken up at a meeting. I was scared too. How am I supposed to speak up and be respectful at the same time? Because Mom said, calladita, no? The very first words out of my mouth was, Mr. Jones, with all due respect, I don't believe XYZ, whatever I said. That was the moment in my life where I felt, oh my gosh, this is what I need to do. I just need to say with all due respect. But then it became like, it became kind of funny. So I give kudos to my colleague who pulled me aside and me dice, Marianne, you have a great perspective. Stop saying with all due respect. I didn't know. I was just trying to be respectful and not ruffle the feathers and get the next promotion and, That was my personal experience. Maybe it resonates with you, maybe it doesn't. The next one that I will share with you is familismo. Familismo is the preference for maintaining a close connection to the family. And I'm going to share a story with you that actually came from an employee to one of our said sponsors tonight, but I won't mention the company. But when I say the state, maybe you'll know. I don't know. I was talking to her. We ran her through the assessment. I was talking to her, and she said, oh, Marianne, if only I had known. If only I had known about these cultural scripts and how they influence our day-to-day behaviors in corporate America. And I told her, amiga, now you do know. You can be the messenger. Her story was that when she was working for this organization, she got called in for a promotion. There's nothing wrong with that. She should be happy, right? But she wasn't. It was like bittersweet at the same time. And I said, amiga, tell me more. Why did you feel that way? I didn't know the reasoning. She said, Marianne, I was thrilled to have a promotion, move out of state, bigger salary, bigger role. What more can you ask for? I said, a bonus? And she had to stop and think about it. And her boss was just kind of like, well, why aren't you happy, Andrea? Or why aren't you happy, And she said, I'm the full breadwinner for my mom and dad, and I'm the caretaker of my mom and dad. Familismo, close connection. What am I supposed to do when I'm the caretaker of mom and dad? Guess what she did? What do you think she did? I can't hear you. Yes. She picked up, sold their property, and moved. The whole family. But as Latinas, we value family so much and we struggle with family that we have to think twice about what that decision is going to make. Again, there's a pivotal point that we all get to that we wonder, do we go left or do we go right? I'm going to have to speed it up a little bit, but here's the thing. Just like we have common cultural scripts, so do American companies. American companies, this is what they reward. It's not me saying this. In fact, because we do so many validated assessments, over 10,000 assessments and executive coaching across the nation, we know that the data is real. Being assertive, having an objective viewpoint, having a generation of ideas, individual drive, key relationships, connecting with those key stakeholders, decisiveness. It's not about, hey, well, what does the group think? Results over loyalty, and an individual first mentality. Now the question is, how do these fit? When we know that we have certain cultural scripts, now I'm gonna emphasize something real quick because some of you might be thinking, well, I don't know about that. There's 3 variables when it comes to these cultural scripts. Number 1 is your country of origin. Mis amigas, puertorriqueñas, cubanas, like you guys are a little bit different. I love you. The generation matters. If you compare my mother to my son, oh my gosh, it is night and day, and I do not want to talk about it. And then it's how we self-identify. As some Latinos, you may encounter some Latinos that don't even speak English, that don't identify with the script of these cultural scripts. You have the retro Latino, you have the equivocal Latino. It depends who you are and where you stand in your own Latino identity journey. The best part about this is that you don't have to change who you are. You don't. You can still value your cultural values and your identity. But the question is, how does it fit? And I'll give you a quick example. The Latino cultural scripts, when you think about respeto and assertiveness, can you still be assertive but be respectful in your mind? Absolutely. It's not so much what we say, it's how we say it to get our point across. Now, the last thing that I'll share with you, well, one of the few last things, because I know I'm cut off time, is we have developed the first ever validated assessment that ties the cultural scripts to American culture, to American company cultures. And there's a peer progression model for this. First and foremost, we need to understand that we have to learn how to align internally. Do you have career alignment, purpose, and values right now with the organization that you're currently in? If you don't have it, you are not going to bloom. That's number 1. You have to align internally. Number 2, interpersonal investment. If you raise your hand and you tell me, oh, why network, Marianne? I go to networking events. That's great. But is it intentional? We need to develop champions to learn how to network and advocate and extend influence. The last part is leveraging the organization. Are you taking initiative? Are you part of the ERGs? Are you part of multiple ERGs? Because the next thing about this is, Jai talked about it yesterday, and that's cultural intelligence. A lot of times I talk to individuals and they're like, oh, well, Marianne, I'm part of the Hispanic Engineering Association. Marianne, I'm part of the Latino Caucus Washington, D.C. Association. And so those are all wonderful organizations. But how are you leveraging diversity? How are you gaining that cultural intelligence that Jai talked about if we're staying in the same bubble? Now, here's the cool thing about it. What is today? National, International Women's Day. Do you know what the theme is today? Embracing equity. For those of you that stood up earlier, and you had that one thing I want all of you to stand up. Because even though those of you that didn't stand up, I'm sure you can find that one thing. Listen, when it comes to coaching, executive coaching, career coaching, life coaching, health and wellness coaching, I don't care what it is, we all need to be coached up. If you think you know it all, my friend, you're already on the wrong path. So, if today is International Women's Day, and we need to embrace it, do it with me. It's this. Now, I want you to close your eyes and think about that one thing that is a challenge for you, that you've been thinking about, but you haven't taken action on. Think about it. Be intentional about it. When you walk away today and you realize that one thing can change the trajectory of your career, of your life, of your kids' life, of your family lives, it's that one thing. I hope you're okay with silence. Sometimes we don't get it enough. But if we can learn to embrace ourselves, we can learn to embrace others. We can learn to push up, pull up all the Latinas in this room. I find myself fortunate to be here with you. And the fact that every single one of you has been chosen to be here. You are the messenger. You are the messenger of the possibilities. You are the messenger of courage. You are the messenger of the ROI outcomes that can also attribute to business outcomes. You are the messenger to your family. So many times we don't stop and think about the impact of our decisions, but they're watching. My youngest is 19. Your girls are watching. Your boys are watching. Your daughter-in-laws are watching. Your colleagues are watching. Open your eyes. I hope you walk away learning to embrace yourselves. Because if you can't do that, then you can't embrace the person next to you. Thank you for having me today.